So we're taking the carburetor off of the CBR F3, and if you read the manual, there is a certain way. There is an easy way to get it off, and so I always like to start with my very long screwdriver. It's not. I learned it's actually not necessary to have one this big. A near normal size screwdriver will work. But once you get the seat off, which normally has maybe a bolt or something in the back, and then it slides out, and then it's got the gas tank. You take out the bolt that holds the gas tank, disconnect it, and then it just slides out of the bike. And then you just remove the few screws that hold the air box together. Now there will be these that you also need to disconnect and go inside and sort of make sure you don't pull them out. Now the air box is in two pieces. There's a top and then there's a bottom. No, I'm wrong. There's actually three pieces. And you do got to take them off one by one. There's a little vent hose on the bottom side that just pulls off. And then you have to take off all the screws. There's 4, 8, 12, 16. There's 16 screws that you got to take off in order to get off this last black housing. Now the reason I'm taking this apart is because I wanted to make sure the carbs were synchronized, and so I had the carb synchronizing gauges on it. And now, in order to put the little bolts back into the, I guess it would be the intake manifold pieces, I found that this seems to be the easiest way because I can't fit my hands up inside in order to put the, I mean, they're little tiny bolts. I don't know, maybe like an M6 or less. And something I'll show you in a second is with these carbs is there's two long ones and there's two short ones. So it's just something to watch out for when you take them apart. All right, two left. Oh, the reason I'm taking this section off is because in order to put these carbs back on, I found it easiest to hit it with a rubber hammer. So it's as simple as that. Hit it with a hammer and keep on moving. So once you pull off those, you can just pull the whole assembly right off and apparently lose my rings. And you have 4, we'll call them O-rings. They're not, exactly circular, but, you'll have 4 O-rings that go on it. And then if you notice, well, you can't really notice, but so if you look at it, you'll notice that the 2 middle ones are longer than the side ones. And so once you do that, you'll just lift the assembly off. I keep all the screws, everything together in it. And I just lift it off and I just set it to the side. Now from here, you'll just have the little hoses. Don't mind how I got it hooked up. It's just getting it running for the carbs. That does got fluid in it. So I'd like to not to spill it. Now with the carburetor, the way it works is this is one of the most helpful tips that I could have ever used. Is what'll happen is, I'm trying to see if I can pinpoint it. Anyways, right, there's 2 screws. You're going to find one right here on the bottom of the carburetor. I can see it with my eyeball, I just can't see it with the phone. So there'll be one right here, and then what you'll do is the second one will come in through this hole or this area, and it'll stick straight through and it'll hit that second one. If I can get my finger back up in there, it'll hit the second one and then the first one, and then you'll go on to the other side and you'll do the exact same thing. Now, if you never took one off, if you never taken it off, this one in particular, or yours, that's what I'm saying. If you haven't took yours off, it's probably going to be very difficult. So what I end up doing is right here on this side, there's a real nice spot to pry on. As you can see, it gets a fair bit of grippage under there. Now that's on the left side, and then on the right side, it's got a good spot too. And you just, you're not, there's no, hitting it hard. You're just doing a firm, solid, ease it up, and you'll feel it. It'll slowly come up. Now I need to disconnect this line. This is the throttle cable. Don't get stuck on me there. It pulls up as easy as that. Now you also have a choke cable right here that you're supposed to pop off. But what I'm trying to get to, you can actually see that threaded. So I got to put the bolt, bolt goes on the other side, but where's it at? So that's as simple as that. And as you can see, I had 2 of the 4 come off properly, and the top 2 and the other 2 didn't come off right, or maybe I should have tightened them more. But so when you look at these, not only do they say up, you know, up towards the carb. But when they're sitting there, these clamps are not in the same position. Now, these would go on, let me make sure I get it right. They would go yeah, so when they're sitting on the bike or on the motor, they would be sitting like this. Now, not only it also has a like an indentation down here. There's a small indentation right there that sort of helps line stuff up where it's supposed to be. So like I said, on this side, you'll get to these, you'll get to this one, and then to this one, and the same thing for the other side. You'll come in one, and then two. That's one of the biggest secrets to getting these off. So you're not taking the upper ones, you know, the E, you know, where you see these, you're not trying to take those off. 1, 2, 3, and 4, you're shooting for the ones on bottom. But that's the basic, and these are the coil packs. One for the, you know, one there, it's 1, 4, and 2, 3, or 2, 3, 1, 4. I'd have to look at it. And the other important thing on these coil packs is if you take the wires off, they do have to go back in the same location. If you can see right there, that's like a green color or something, so it's got to match up with that one. And then this one is black and matches up with the black. Same thing for this one. This one's yellow. It'll go to whatever color that is, and then the black one will go to the black one. Very important. I couldn't figure out why I wasn't getting spark, and I realized I didn't hook it back up right. So I had learned something on there. So now, if you can see, I got 1, 2, 3, and 4 of those plugs back in there. Now those are for the carb, for syncing the carb. You'll simply take the carb, you'll take 1, 2, 3, and 4. There's 4 hoses, there's four carburetors, and you hook it up to each one. After you hook it up, you'll put it back, put the carburetors back on, put the air box back on. I jerry-rigged a fuel tank, and then start the bike up, and you'll want to, now when you crack these valves, I bought this off eBay, when you crack these little white valves, you're just turning them just a very, very little bit, maybe, I don't know, half a turn or less. And what that'll do is that'll get the needle, and the needle will start doing this number. And then you'll just take that screw and screw it back in very little, and as you do, that needle will start to stabilize. Now once it just goes dead flat, you'll want to back it back out to where there's just a very small teeter-tatter, and then that's when you hit the gas, bam, bam, and you'll want to check them all, and you want to make sure that they're all within reason, being the same. And if one of them's not the same, you'll adjust there's a little screw on top of the carburetor on the top side. There's top side over here. So there's a screw somewhere over here that you'll adjust it just a little bit, and then snap the throttle. And once you snap the throttle, it will it'll help it stabilize back out, and you'll do the same thing for the remainder for the other ones if they're out of sync. So we've already started on hitting this thing back in, and what I'm using is a wire brush and a nice rubber mallet. I was using a OK mallet, And now we're going through a bigger mallet. I just found it on the floor. You want to make sure it's lined up nice and good when you're looking at this thing, and you'll be able to see the nice shiny metal of those intakes compared to that black rubber. And you don't want to set it, anything on the plastic or the hoses or anything like that. And just give some good old whackings till it comes a packing. I believe old Betsy's there. Yeah, a little more. Now don't put these things on the jets. I keep it towards the top, and I keep it distributed. I had a piece of wood, but I don't know where it's at. And I tried other ways. They did not work. I'm actually about to break this handle. Nice about this too is it's got points. This has nice divots in different places. You can hit it. Alright, looks a lot better. So this is not going to be able to show you. I'll be able to get a better picture though. Get old camera to stay still. Take handy dandy light. Now the two on the sides are about the easiest to get to. See, there's the first one. It just comes straight in through the side right there. Now, like I said, I originally bought this big jumbo screwdriver because I had thought I had needed it. And sometimes what you got to do is you have to move a hose out the way in order to see your screw. And I just try to play the game of, if this one is right here, then this one should be right there. The second one is always the harder one because there's so many hoses that you have to see through. Oh yeah. And the better the light source, happier you'll be. Alright. And I try to get these as tight as I can. Up until, you know, you strip it. What happens, you know, if you strip it up, take the bolt, and you go to Home Depot, and you sit there until you find one that fits it. Just make sure it's the same kind, same length, and you should be good to go. Back to needed some good light. Alright, that's all four. We got the throttle cable. My return cable is broke. When I took it apart, I found out that it was broke, and I gotta either make a new one or get a new one. So it's just gonna be the same thing now. There's a little bit of a catch when you put this top piece back on. Now, of course, you want to put 1, 2, 3, 4. It's after you figure out where it goes. And so you'll see the 1, 2, 3 tabs. 1, 2, 3 tabs. And those are the same tabs that line up with those metal pieces that go in here. All right, 1, 2, 3, 4. See, what happened is on these, you have the tabs. 1, 2, 3 on each one, and you can't just place them in here. The metal pieces come out, but these don't. They have to twist and they have to turn to go inside of there. So as I like to do is I like to leave it just as it was. And usually if you don't mess with them, they go right, you know, right back in, but I messed with them, so. And you'll just line them up ever so slightly. And remember, you do got those O-rings right there. You don't want to disturb them. Push it down nice and lightly. Get your biggest screwdriver you can ever find. Go ahead and screw her down. And all I'm doing for these is I'm doing just enough to sort of get them lined up, and I screw them down most of the way, just enough so I feel resistance, and then I'll go back through and I'll torque them. You know, I'll put a little more pressure on them more equally once they're all placed. And this is a lot quicker with the drill. And so we've got a couple more screws here. Go to put the filter back on. And don't forget to hook up this little stupid hose on the side, just because you'll be sucking in air that you shouldn't be. And it's not too difficult just to push up in there. Once you get everything put down to spec. And look, these aren't, you know, cranked down as hard as you can. You know, simply put them down. I actually went to, alright, let's find that screw. Hey, Mr. Screw, Mr. Screw, Mr. Screw. So I went to Home Depot and actually bought these with the lock thing on the end of them. And that's just because the ones that was in here was all stripped up, and I mean, they looked really bad. So it was actually a headache even messing with this thing. So now this is actually the complete